Hello, good morning. Well, there's good morning here for the next 10 minutes anyway. Yeah, welcome to Lovespoon Workshop. What I'm going to do, I'm going to do our live stream that should have happened yesterday, but we had a lot of problems yesterday. First live stream that I've actually had to abandon, so I thought, well, instead of missing out on what we were going to demonstrate this week and missing out on what we were doing, I thought, yeah, let's go back, let's look again, let's see what we can do. So what we've got here, we've got our spoon marked out. The idea of this live stream is to demonstrate to you a couple of things. Firstly, I'm going to try my best to only work with 2 gouges. The reason for that is to demonstrate to you how much can actually be done when only using 2 gouges. So that's the first thing, to try and demonstrate how getting into wood carving doesn't have to be expensive. So that's something that we're going to look at in this live stream. But we're also going to go through then some of the simple fundamentals, some of the basics for any of you who are interested in getting into lovespoon carving. So the first thing you're going to need a gouge for doing the bowl. So you've got like a concave, we refer to them as fingernail gouges. So that's the first thing that you need. It's like a fingernail gouge. Sorry, we just got a comment on it. Tommy's Workshop, hello. Wow, brilliant, glad to have you with us. I didn't know if we'd have anybody with us this morning because, yeah, unfortunately, yesterday evening was a bit of a disaster, but thanks for joining us. Hopefully this will be useful. It's going to be sort of basics, but if you haven't done any lovespoon carving, don't know how much lovespoon carving you've done before, so we're just going to go through some of the things that we do. So what you can see we've done, we've marked out our wood. So we've got our vertical grain, so it's running in that direction, and we've marked out then how we would hand carve a bowl. So you've got the outside shape of the spoon, you've then got the inside shape of the spoon. So this is going to be the form, the sort of basic shape that we're going to make the bowl of our spoon to. We've marked roughly a center line and then 2 arrows to show the direction that we're going to be working in. So what you basically do to do a bowl, you start off where you're working towards that center line. Now, Dad wanted me to demonstrate yesterday. If you find this a little bit difficult, you can use a mallet for a bit of extra pressure. If you haven't got a mallet, just get a scrap of wood. Any old piece of wood will do it. There you go. So just get a block of wood and use it in the same way as a mallet. Anyone interested as well? As you can see, we got a round mallet. Oh, 2 seconds. Oh, you're in your workshop. Brilliant. Well, you'll have to let us know what you're working on. Ah, he was on his own computer yesterday. Ah, fantastic. But yeah, what are you working on in your workshop? Anything interesting? You'll have to let us know. Yeah, this one here, round mallet. We sometimes get asked, why do you use a round mallet? Well, simple reason why you use a round mallet. You pick it up, you use it, you put it down. It doesn't matter how you pick it up, you just pick it up and you use it. So as you can see then, we're working into our center line. So the grain is running vertically and we're just working to that outside edge, but we're working to the center line. So gradually working our way back to our outside line, working with the grain, working into the center, but getting that shape using that guideline. Now, there's no rules or regs, so some people like to just use, no sort of shape at all. We like to get a sort of nice form and a nice shape on our bowls, so we work by using that line as a guide. If you don't want to use guidelines, don't worry about it. Do it however you want to. That's the nice thing with the lovespoon. As a tradition, there are no sort of rules and regs. So as you can see, we've worked our way back, gradually then going deeper into the woods. So that's how we're forming the shape. of the bowl of our spoon. Go gradually deeper as you're going along into the wood and working back to that outside line. So there we go. Once you've done that, this is, as I said, geared towards beginners. Because I sit to carve, I turn it round in the vise and I start working back the other way. And the reason for that, it means that I'm constantly cutting away from myself and I'm keeping both hands behind the blades. Another point then, we've got the spoon itself, we've got it secured in the vise. And again, it's safety because you can do it where you're holding what you're carving in the one hand and gouging away. Problem with that, of course, you've always got that risk of going into your hands. So that's why people use gloves. I prefer this method because it gives you more control over the gouge, but also you've got that feel for the wood. So if you include like a glove and things like that, nothing wrong. I'm not saying it's wrong, so don't take it as I'm saying it's wrong. If that's what you do, brilliant. And if it works for you, fantastic. But if you've got a glove sort of in the middle of things involved in your work, then it can reduce the amount that you can feel. I think we just had another comment. I was asking Tommy from Tommy's workshop what he was working on. Did he share with us what he's working on? He's in his workshop today.
Yeah, he's in his workshop. He was yesterday, but on home computer.
No, after that, did he say what he was working on?
Yeah.
No? Ah, there we are. Good, glad to have you with us. So you can see now, already, we're just building up the shape. As Thomas the Woodcarver's just joined us, he's just been up the post office. He's been sending a few love spoons out, ready for Valentine's and Welsh Valentine's. So, yeah, busy time for us. So you can see, that is a very simple demonstration. So we've worked our way back to that outside line to get the shape of our bowl, and we've basically got a little bit of depth by working to that central line. We got a little bit of depth to our bowl as well.
Could go deeper, couldn't you?
We could go deeper, absolutely. So we could go deeper, and that's the thing, it's personal preference. The thing you're sort of working out is to go deep enough to give you a deep enough sort of bowl, but not to go too deep, because if you go too deep, you've got that chance where you can go completely through the wood itself. There we are. So I'm going to turn it round in the vise once more, and then that is then a very simple method for carving the bowl. I think there's another comment there if you want to check and read it. There we are. So again, just working back.
Oh, he's working on a Ravinia clock.
Ah, very nice too. Very nice. We used to do a lot of clocks, didn't we?
Yes.
It's more. We find it's more difficult to get good clock movements. That's the difficulty now. They're more. If you want a decent clock movement, they tend to be more expensive. It's actually one of the videos that I wanted to do this year was because we do 5 different projects at different times. Wanted to do 5 different clocks, so I had a few ideas for demonstrating. That's what we do with a lot of our demonstrations. We do products that we haven't done for a long time, don't we?
It's quite an interesting subject, clocks, actually, because
yeah, absolutely.
You know, the market's been flooded, really. I think with a lot of cheap movements.
Yeah, that's what we used to do. Used to do a pendulum clock. You know, you used to do you used to do a mini grandfather clock.
Yeah.
We used to do like what was the one? Did you call it like a Napoleon? Was that the shape?
Yeah, I suppose so.
A Napoleon, like a Napoleon's hat type shapes. That was another one that we used to do. So yeah, we've done all sorts of different ones. Let's have a little look. Ah, yeah, there we are. That's one that we've done. We demonstrated how to do that one. Just a little, excuse me, little miniature grandfather clock. Excuse me. Right, now, once you've done that, once you've got that sort of basic shape, you can then use different sandpapers if you want to get a smooth finish, or you can leave it off the chisel, off the gouge. No rules or regs. Do what you want to do. Finish it how you want to. This, yeah, you carry on, did. This one as well, we demonstrated on this one because a friend of mine then, they were actually asking about spoon carving. They're just starting to learn spoon carving, and they were asking, you know, they knew nothing about it. They just bought themselves some tools, and that's why I thought I'd demonstrate this again. I've demonstrated a couple of times before, just to show how you can make a very simple spoon, you know, just working on the bowl. And the kind of thing, you can use a coping saw to cut your outline, and then afterwards, you know, you can work with your hand tools to shape things in the way that you want to. The wood then, the person I was speaking to, they wanted to make like practical spoons. So they were asking about what wood to use. And then the two that we suggest is this one here, which is a piece of sycamore. And then the other one that we suggest is beech. And the reason we suggest those two woods, they don't taint food. So for instance, lime, basswood is easier for carving. The lime, the basswood's easier for carving. When it comes to actually using it as sort of practical cooking utensils, because it's, how would you describe it, more porous, they reckon that it can be a bit of a breeding ground for bacteria. So that's why we don't sort of recommend it. Whilst we recommend it for learning carving, we don't recommend it as much for when it comes to actually using it, you know, for practical spoons. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to demonstrate, as I mentioned, I'm going to carve a couple of spoons here for you all to see, and I'm going to demonstrate. I'm only going to use 2 gouges because as beginners, equipment, I'm just going to check, I've got another comment there, excuse me a second. First clock. Oh wow. Oh, you'll enjoy it. Yeah, nice process. So if it's your first clock, you'll enjoy making it. It's good fun. Nice to do something different. Yeah, when it comes to beginners then, we're always trying to encourage everybody to have a go at making love spoons, at doing wood carving in general. A couple of things. We always try to help people to get into it in a safe way. So that's why we suggest simple little practical things that you can do in terms of cutting away from yourself, securing it in a vise. But we always encourage to try and get into doing the wood carving in the most economical way too. So when it comes to the woods, we encourage people to sort of, you know, make inquiries with tree surgeons, companies working with wood, that sort of thing, to try and source the wood relatively inexpensive way, because the wood can become extremely expensive. And then when it comes to the tools, we again try and encourage people to get into it in a reasonable way. So this is just to show you just 2 gouges, and I mean, you don't want to be spending more than £100 on 2 gouges like these, and it's just to show you how much can be done with 2 gouges. And I always sort of think you are better off, we've got a video coming up on it where we demonstrate what can be done with a beginner's basic set of gouges, but I always think you're better off getting 2 good quality gouges. So these are vintage, they're vintage Herring Brothers. And I always think if you can get some really nice gouges like this to work for, they're just really nice to work in. So it does make a difference if you've got nice tools, nice gouges to use. So, as you can see in this design, we've got a treble clef. We've then got the 2 hearts. It's a sort of contemporary style design. Again, as this is geared towards anybody sort of starting, learning, the way we cut the wood, you cut it with a vertical grain. So you're working with the grain as much as possible. I've just noticed that there's just a little blemish in the wood, which I didn't see until now. So we'll have to do some work afterwards to actually get that back out, because I'm not happy with that. There we are. We'll have to work on that afterwards. So you can see we're only using those 2 gouges, and we're shaping the spoon as we're going along. So far I've mainly been working on that treble clef, but we'll work on the hearts as well. The love spoon as well, for anyone who's sort of unfamiliar, it's perfect for this time of year. So if you're interested in making something as a Valentine's gift, it really is the sort of perfect one, because you can make it yourself, and it's, yeah, have a look at the history and things. It's a very appropriate gift, and we're very fortunate to have it as a tradition here in Wales. So you can see the hearts now. What I'm going to do, I'm just going to bevel the edges just to shape it a little bit. Same on the other heart, just bevel the edges, and then just in there, just like so. Just rounds it off, it just gives it a different finish. That then, it's a sort of subjective thing. That's my style of carving. For instance, Dad, he doesn't bevel the edges and things like that in the same way. So you can always, there's different methods, different approaches that you can take. So you'll notice as well, what I do all of the work, or as much of the work as possible, with the spoon facing the one way, and then afterwards I'll turn it round in the vise and do the work facing the other way. That's basically because I sit down to carve. Again, Dad does it differently, and he stands to carve, so all he would do, he would just move around the other side. So I think we've done most of our work in that direction. So we turn our spoon round and then start working back in the other direction. This one here we're working on, it's a piece of mahogany. But as we've said at different times, we use all sorts of different woods to make our love spoons from. It would be recycled wood. So in this area, there was the Royal Dock in Pembroke Dock, and they used to bring in things like teak and mahoganies into there, so we can source this locally. But it is starting to become a little bit more difficult for us to source the woods, even things like oak, because of lockdowns and coronavirus and things like this. It's more difficult for us to get out and about and get to, we used to have the furniture sales, but you can't have that because, it's gatherings of numbers of people together. The charity shops, there's companies locally who are sort of doing furniture, where they do house clearances and things like that, and we would buy furniture from them. And again, it's more difficult for us to go and see the furniture at this moment in time, but let's hope things will change soon and we'll be able to sort of get back to more normal and source wood. And this one, with the mahogany, they do tell us there's between 2,000 and 3,000 different types. So you get all sorts of different mahoganies, and they're all sort of different for carving. You get better quality ones, you get not so good quality ones. This one is towards the better end of the spectrum. So this is a nice piece of mahogany, may even be, I'm looking, you get in the Brazilian mahogany, you get a little white fleck quite often. I can't see it in this one, but it's certainly carving. It's that sort of quality of mahogany. It's one of the better ones. I think basically what happened in the UK, you go back to the sort of 50s up until the mid 60s, mid to late 60s, you had the best quality mahoganies coming into the UK. And it seems as time goes on, the quality sort of goes down and down. So, the 70s into the 80s, the 90s, you start getting cheaper mahoganies, things like Luan and more Kerwin and things like that. But we use a number of different ones. Utili, that's quite a nice one of the African mahoganies. Sapili, quite nice. Difficulty with Sapili, not the easiest for a beginner, because the grain runs in two different directions. You'll notice it when you put it through the planer, that sort of thing. It'll plane up nicely on the one part of the wood, and then it'll scuff up in the other one. Interesting one as well with the mahogany, because we have a lot of it through, there's certain types of mahogany that carve backwards. So what I mean by that, as you can see there, I'm working with the grain and I'm carving down there, like so. Again, I work with the grain, I'll carve down there. There's certain types of mahogany and you have to actually carve up there and up there. So you have to do the reverse, which is a bit strange. But the thing with that is it's a good one for a learning experience for any inexperienced carvers then, because you have to be willing to how can I explain? You have to be sympathetic to the wood. If you basically try and have a battle with the wood and say, well, the textbook says I should do it this way, you're fighting a losing battle. You have to learn from the wood itself. That's your best teacher. You know, if you're getting resistance from a piece of wood, don't carve in that direction. Change what you're doing and find out what the wood wants you to do. So it's when you're working with wood, you have to have empathy and you have to be sympathetic towards it, because sometimes it will do things that you think it shouldn't, but it's a living, natural thing, basically, is what I'm trying to get at. And if it doesn't want you to carve in a particular direction, find out what direction it will carve best in. So, we're well on with this particular love spoon. Another thing I do is to just bevel that edge there. Afterwards, I like to sand it all down. That's my carving style, but we're all different. So have a go at carving it in the way that suits you best. So we come on the other side as well, just to shape those edges. Turn it around once more. We've got a little bit of work to do on the treble clef. And this love spoon is a popular one that we do in our online shop. We call it Love Song. And it's one that I enjoy carving. It's a funny old thing, actually. You'd think that carving is carving. But you do, you know, even ourselves, we have designs that we enjoy making more. And then you'll have other things that you're not as keen on working on. But this one is one of my favourites. Nice sort of contemporary design. And the beauty with the love spoon, when it comes to design, you can do all sorts of different things. There's no rules or regulations. You can use different woods, you can use different designs, and you're basically doing whatever you want to do, whatever you enjoy doing. There we go. Right, let's have a little look. I got a little bit of work just in there. I might just bring this, just bevel that edge there, bevel that edge there. If you're wondering as well, the white on there, it depended on the spoons we do, but we basically have a paper template and we transfer that onto the wood using, we just stick it down. Bit of the, what do they call it, the PVA glue, stick it on. So when you're cutting out, you've got those guidelines. And then afterwards, what I'll do, I'll put this on the belt sander and it'll just rip off the paper. It's not ideal because it tends to, after a little while, it tends to garm up the belt sander just a little bit, but nothing too bad. Here we are. Right, this little piece. There's a couple of just finishing bits here. Just want to change it just to go a little bit deeper on both the treble clef and the heart. Just like so. I'll just go back in there. I'm just trying to create a little bit more distinction between where the heart is and where the treble clef is, making them clearly sort of two slightly together but slightly separate. Here we are. So that's our first little love spoon. Perfect for anybody who likes music, or what do they say? Music is the food of love. Something like that, isn't it? So there we go. That's our first design. Right. All done as well, as we mentioned, all done with just those two gouges. Now I've got a lovely little spoon here. I'm going to be carving now Dad's favourite wood, teak. A lot of people have the idea, there's this idea that teak is hard to carve. It's hard to work with. And the truth is that teak is a beautiful soft timber because it's full of teak oil. And you get there's just loads of oil just seeps out of it. So because it's so oily, it's a really nice timber to work in. And the gouges, they just glide through it like a knife through butter. So you can see just starting off, just working on front of the heart. Again, we're only going to use the 2 gouges. So we just bring that down into the vise like that. And this gouge, it's got a slight bevel on it, but it's as close to being straight as you get without it actually being straight. It's just got a very, very slight curve. So you can see, get your stop cuts. So again, information for beginners, we've got the vertical grain running. We cut our stop cuts. So you cut down into the wood, so you get a stop cut, and then you use that stop cut as a barrier. So cut into that barrier. If you need to make the barrier bigger, you just cut down further into it using the stop cut you've already done. Cut down further into the wood and go over the stop cut again. One thing as well, if you're a beginner and you're specifically interested in love spoons, designing, that's an interesting area. So we do our own designing, and you'll see a lot of people when they get into love spoon carving, they'll stick to only using certain designs. Can never understand it, because the nice thing with the love spoon, there's no rules or regulations. You can do anything in terms of design. So one of the nicest parts of love spoon carving is actually doing your own love spoon designs, and that makes it more personal and more unique. Also as well, despite different people trying to put rules and regs on the tradition, nothing was written down. It goes back to the 17th century. They didn't write anything down about the tradition, so the only thing we know about it is from old examples, early examples of love spoons. And the good thing about that is it gives you that freedom to put your own interpretation on things. And that's what we use the love spoon for then. We tell stories, we portray messages. So we've always got sort of a few bespoke spoons that we're working on. And that's the nice thing for people then, is that they can tell their own story through their love spoon design. I'm trying to think of some of the ones we've got at the moment. I've just been working on one with some like champagne glasses, with a bow on the top, a rose, and it's all symbols that are meaningful to that particular couple. But again, love spoon, it can cater for all sorts of different occasions. It can cater for all sorts of different interests. We've done everything from people's football clubs to their interests, you know, anything from gardening to dance. That's the real beauty of the love spoon. Because what happened, the tradition, give a bit of background on it. The tradition's very open to interpretation, but since about the 1960s, there have been lists produced, and it's when the traditions become more commercial, and they've served a purpose in terms of more people are aware of the tradition, more people understand that love spoons have meanings. But what they have done is led people to believe that a particular symbol has a particular meaning. Well, it's not really the case. You can interpret different symbols in different ways. So using an example of a traditional symbol, the anchor, one interpretation, it represents stability, putting down your roots. But you can also put an anchor on a love spoon for somebody that has a love of the sea or worked at sea. So there are all sorts of ways that you can use symbols on love spoons. But that's what I would say for beginners. I think when I started on this trail, what I was trying to say is that for beginners, put your own messages, put your own ideas into your spoon and tell that story through the work that you're doing. That's what it's sort of it all starts with an idea, and that's what we do when we design. You'll start off with an idea and a message that you want to portray, and then the design follows after. There we go. So a simple little spoon, just to demonstrate to you as well though how teak, it's a lovely timber to work in. Finishes beautifully. In our own collection then, Dad used teak every single year up until 1981. And he basically started building his own tradition, so he thought that wasn't the right way to go. So he decided to use different woods after that point. Now then, just going to sand it a little bit in the bowl, just so you see that it really is an easy wood to work in. Yeah, I basically, if we were only using teak, we'd probably produce 20-30% more love spoons in a year. You know, because we use things like oak, and again, oak's a nice timber despite its reputation, but you do get some tough pieces of oak, and it's not as easy carving as things like the teaks and Brazilian mahogany. This is, again, it's recycled wood, so this came into us from some old furniture. So that's how we managed to come across it. Right, I'm going to do one more spoon. I'm just going to check. I'm not sure if I've missed a comment there, so I'm just going to check that. 2 seconds. No, it's just the last one that Tommy left on there, working on his clock. I hope it goes well. I hope you're pleased with the finished results. Right, so far we've done 1, we've done 2. So to finish off, we've done 2 darker spoons. There we go. So this one, a little bit of oak. So again, a different wood that we're working in. One again that a lot of people avoid because they say it's difficult for carving. But another one that myself I enjoy working with. And as you may have noticed through this demonstration, it's all geared towards, you know, showing how beginners can get into wood carving, how you can use the love spoon to begin your journey with wood carving and wood in general. All of this has been done with 2 gouges. For beginners as well, then, when it comes to gouges, I recommend getting sort of better quality ones to start with. Having said that, I got a video coming up where I bought a simple set like that, and I demonstrate how you can use them. I didn't do any sharpening of them, and I just demonstrate what they can do, what they're capable of, and how you can get on with them. There we are. So yeah, but if you can get a few nice ones to work with, it does make life easier. The other thing then you want to think about is a good sharpening system. So we use a Tormek, which for beginners I wouldn't recommend because it is an expensive bit of kit. I just had a couple of comments from Tommy. I'll go and check. How's he getting on? Let's have a look. Ah, good. There we go. He's doing exactly that. He's working on the tools, and it's going well. I'm glad to hear it. Yeah, nice projects working on things like clocks. Dad used to do a lot of them. I'm back when we started. He started the workshop in 1975. He was carving before then, but he started the workshop in 1975, and he used to do, as I mentioned, like the pendulum clocks and things like that. And we'd have people ringing us after 30 years saying that the movement's broken. But we used to think that's not bad going for one clock movement to last 30 years. Unfortunately, it's not the case any longer. And we do that as well. You'll see, I don't think we've got any at the moment on our website, but we put the clocks and clock movements, we put them into the love spoons as well. We made that design on a theme of time is a precious gift. So that was the idea. Yeah, going back to sharpening, what I would suggest sort of starting out is to have a sharpening system and something like a little slipstone and a leather strop, because keeping your tools well maintained, it does make a big difference when it comes to wood carving. There we are. This has started peeling, so I don't want to worry about that. We're just going to take it off. So this symbol in the center here, that's the sort of centerpiece of the story of our love spoon, this final one that we're going to demonstrate, and that is the Celtic eternity sign. So this also known as, they call it the Trinity knot. It's got a number of different names, but we refer to it as the Celtic eternity sign. Yeah, it's a symbol that I absolutely love because it's nice to carve, and whilst Celtic symbols were not sort of traditional when it comes to the love spoon, we use them a lot. We incorporate them into our spoons a lot because they got such fantastic meaning to them. So this symbol, the nice thing with it, and you'll see it with a circle on it as well and different things like that, the nice thing with it is it's continuous and it sort of overlaps. It goes under and over. What I'm going to do to carve it though, I'll turn it round in the vise. Because the funny thing is, I'm always used to carving it facing the other way. So if I try and carve it facing this way, I'll get it wrong. One of my quirky things as a carver, for me this is upside down. So I'll get all the cuts the wrong way round because I can't see it. I can't see it as I should be able to. So we just, yeah, carve a little bit of a surround, just bevel the edge, just like so. Then we turn it round in the vise, and now I can see it clearly. So I always start off with that cut there. And again, if you're a beginner and you want to have a go at doing something like this, mark the lines on there. Don't worry about it. Mark those lines on the spoon so you know which way to do it. So we just start off with that cut, and then from there, the idea is it goes under and over and under and over. So we know that that one goes in the opposite direction. So it's going under, over, and then this one goes in the opposite direction again. So once we've got that first one marked, and I need to turn it round to make sure I get it right, once we've got it, I can work everything out from there. But if you're a beginner, the easiest thing is to just draw it all out on the wood and then go from there. Now normally I would use a slightly smaller gouge to do this job, but as I'm demonstrating only using 2 gouges, this one will do the job. So that's what you get. See, as you spend more time doing carving, that's why we've got dozens and dozens of gouges. A couple of things. One, they're not making as many good quality gouges and at a reasonable price today. So if we see a nice vintage gouge, we automatically, if it's at a reasonable price, we buy it. But the more different gouges you've got, the more different sizes, the more different jobs that you can do. So this is the one I use for doing the bowl. Yeah, the more, that's what you sort of accumulate, but you can see you don't need lots and lots of different tools and gouges to be able to do wood carving. It's just trying to get it across to any beginners that wood carving is not an expensive, there are far more expensive hobbies and interests that you can pursue than wood carving. So it's those simple principles again where you're always working with the grain. So the grain, yeah, we're working with the grain, it's running in that direction there. Round the outside, we're just going to bevel as well. So we just take a little bit of that sharp edge off, just like so. And then the same this side, just take a little bit of that sharp edge off. That's, again, subjective, personal preference. No right or wrong way to do those things. That's just my preferred method. Here, then, we just take a little bit around the outside. It's just trying to bring out that carving. There we are. Again, we're just working on those different angles. Can work into that edge there. We use different ones with some of the Celtic symbols. Then we've used. You've got the one for new beginnings. That's a nice symbol. You've got, as we mentioned, you've got the Trinity knot. This one here. There's the is it Treslian? Leon? I'm not sure how to say it correctly, but that's another beautiful symbol that we've just done on quite a unique bespoke spoon. That particular spoon, we had 2 rabbits. There was a cross on there, and then the Treslian and like a Celtic weave around the outside. Just going to check as well. We've got a few more comments, so I'm just going to check those. Oh, no, my mistake. There we are. So, back onto this one here. Now we've done a lot of the work on our eternity sign. You may notice I just picked up the mallets just for a bit of extra pressure. As I mentioned at the start, if you haven't got a mallet, just use simple block of woods, a couple of taps just on the top, just like so. And then that stop cut, you use it as a barrier, cut down into the woods, like so. Now there's an interesting thing again. This is typical wood and wood carving, because as I'm carving down into there, I can just see there's a little split on the outside there. And that is it's just a blemish in the wood. Some of the things we've seen over the years, wood is fascinating that way. You'll get thunder shakes, basically, where the wood, the tree has been hit by lightning and then it heals itself back. And then looking at that, no, there's a little split there. Because for a second I thought it was a thunder shake. And you get little voids in the wood, you get blemishes in the grain, and sometimes we'll be working on a love spoon and you can't see it until you're well into the project, which can be a bit frustrating, but such is life. When it comes as well, if you're interested in the carving, love spoon carving in general, always remember with wood, you need to give strength to your designs. So you'll see a lot of love spoons and you know, they don't have the strength in the design, which means that over time there's a good chance that they'll get broken. Being wooden, there's always that sort of risk, but we try to develop our designs to the best of our ability, so they're as resilient as possible to breakage. But it can still happen, and we make mistakes ourselves. I've made a couple of spoons over the years, and I've actually kept them on display, so I see them every day, just as a reminder to think, right, don't make that mistake again. Now we just caught it there, so I'll have to go back over that afterwards. So back onto our eternity sign. And you notice I turn it round in the vise and I carve at different angles, and the reason for that is I'm trying as much as possible, as much as it is sort of physically possible at all times, to be carving with the grain. But it's a lovely process, a lovely material to work in, and you've got so many different things that you can do. I don't know if I mentioned it as well when it comes to the designing. We prefer like a symmetrical design. So when we design on paper, we mark a line down the center of the page, and then we'll design on the one side and we use a light box to transfer that drawing then onto the other side of the spoon, so you get it nice and symmetrical. There's no rules or regs though. You can do sort of asymmetrical shapes as well. A lot of it comes down to personal preference, you know, and it can be your own style then. If you do more sort of contemporary asymmetrical design, that can be your sort of your thing, makes your love spoons more distinctive. But that's how we do it. Draw it all out on paper before you start. You can just see that grain as well just coming through as we cut the paper away. And the oak, that's one of my favourite woods because you get a beautiful medullary ray in it. Excuse me. There we go. Just got one little cut on that eternity sign just to finish it off. And then this love spoon, we've got to work on the heart as well. Now when it comes to the live streaming, that's another thing that we're always learning different things about. I was thinking at some stage I may even do a video on it. The problems we had yesterday, one was because the one computer decided to do an update. So I had to quickly download OBS Studio onto another one. And basically the problem is that there's a USB 3 port and a USB 2 or a 3.1, I don't know what it is, and the cam link we use only functions correctly in the one type of port. But that's life, isn't it? Every day we learn something new. So this one here, we just drop the wood down, and that's wood carving in its essence, is deciding which parts of the design we're going to bring out and which parts of the design we're going to push back. So these are just sort of two supporting pieces of wood, supporting little sections that connects the heart to the whole design, and we just drop them back, and that will help then to bring that heart shape out. When it comes then to the sharpening, we're using external gouges. So we're sharpening on the outside edge. And what we do, you sharpen it up and you get a little burr on the inside. So you want to get a light burr on the inside. And then once you've got that light burr, you take that off. So using the edge of a slipstone or homing wheels and things like that, take that burr off the inside edge and then you polish up the metal. So we use the Tormek, but something like a leather strop if you're starting out, just to polish up the metal to finish it off. So now this is the first sort of occasion, although we were a little bit on the eternity sign there, where we're sort of carving across the grain. Nothing we can do about it. But what I try to do, I sort of come from here and you can roll the gouge. So sort of by rolling the gouge in, it means that I spend more time working with the grain. So the minimum amount of time I can be carving across the grain, that's my sort of preference. So start off here, so we're carving up with the grain, and then to the last second I twist in to the stop cut, meaning that I am mainly working with the grain. Cleaner finish, better cut. Same again over this side, only you're doing the absolute reverse. So we do that stop cut as our guide. Always as well, when we refer to using the mallet, if you use a mallet or a block of wood, boom, when you're working, because the grain is running vertically there, you've got a high chance of splitting it. So I always sort of recommend when you're cutting there, just use your own hand pressure, because if you use a mallet, because of the direction of the grain, there's a very, very high probability that you will split the wood. But again, the best way to learn, get the tools, get the woods, and get cracking. Start making those spoons. And wood carving's fantastic because there's so many different things you can do, and there's so many different aspects to learn. So we've been involved in it for quite a little while now, and we're always learning new things. There we are. So you can just see just in there now, we've got a little bit of wood, don't want to come out. So just take it out in stages. There we are. Keep building that stop cut up so it goes down into the woods. And so you'll start to see now that we've really brought that heart shape out of the design. So we've gone a little bit lower here. So I've gone a little bit lower there than there. So all I do with that is, because I've done that, I'm just going to match that up. So where I come a little bit lower, just refer to the other side and try and match the one side to the other. I think that's the beauty of it as well. You know, there's an element of improvisation. It's not sort of, well, that's the approach we take. We don't sort of take a scientific approach with it. You're sort of improvising and bringing the one bit out, sometimes matching the other side to it. And sometimes you make little mistakes and you just got to match everything else up to it. So we carve a lot of flowers, that sort of thing. And sometimes you'll pop a little petal out. So all you do, you've got to carve all of the other petals deeper to match that one there. And it actually gives you a bit more effect on what you're doing. I can hear footsteps. Thomas the Woodcarver's on his way back in.
Yep.
Here we are. What do you reckon? How are we getting on?
Let's have a look.
We done that one, eh? Well, I want to have a quick check on that one because there's a suspicious hole on that one, so
Ooh, dear me.
I'm not happy with that one. We done that one there. Your favourite wood, piece of teak.
Yep.
And we're just finishing off on this one here, a bit of oak. And this, there's a little split. There's a flaw in the wood on this one. So there we go. That's wood carving for you. Sometimes we don't know little issues in the wood until we start making it. But we don't sort of, you know, you don't panic about it. You don't worry about it. You crack on with the job and see what you can do. Because most of the splits that I'm referring to, we're actually carving out. What's your top tips, Thomas the Woodcarver? For anybody learning wood carving, for any beginners, what would be your top? You've been doing it, you've been carving for 150 years, so what would you advise?
Well, a lot depends on the individual, quite honestly.
Yeah.
What they have always wanted to carve.
Because that's right, there's different types of carving, isn't there? You've got your sculpture.
Yeah. You've really got to concentrate on, you know,
You've got relief carving.
You know in your mind
where you want to go.
I mean, my background is carpentry and joinery.
Yeah.
And I was fortunate enough to sort of drift into wood carving. I used to have the Practical Woodworker or Practical Woodworking magazine.
Yeah.
And there was a chap by the name of Morris Woods, and he did an article every month on wood carving, and it got me interested because I always wanted to draw. I always wanted to sort of paint, in fact, you know, to make pictures then. But
so
I was absolutely useless at drawing and
what was your first project then?
I carved a hare, in fact. For anybody that thinks I was carving a hare on a head, it was a hare as like a rabbit.
Like the rabbit.
So
what was your, so interesting because I haven't actually seen that. I've never seen that one. What were your sort of first impressions then with wood carving, and what did you feel about your first efforts?
Well, could I make the wood look like the figure that I was trying to represent?
Yeah.
That was my first sort of thing, and I then carved my own hands because I had something to copy, and that's what I sort of fancied doing.
I suppose today, today we've got a bit of an advantage, haven't we? Because you've got Google Images, you've got Shutterstock, you've got clip art, you've got, you know, we can get hold of images more easily than when you started. Really, you know, you would when you first started, you you would have to, you'd be drawing a lot of your images yourself, wouldn't you, out of your head?
Yeah, but I can remember the very first attempt at making a love spoon, I started on a piece of beech.
Right.
And it was really hard. And
the irony of that is that's the very wood that I enjoyed learning to carve with, isn't it? Right, I'll leave that in the vise. I'm going to see quickly if I can find a piece of wood to demonstrate how I started learning. If you carry on explaining it, sorry, Thomas the woodcarver.
Yeah, so I found that bit of beech really hard, and I sort of, I thought I'm not capable of carving. It's not so. So an important thing is don't get put off by the first attempt if it doesn't work out. Try and find. Again, I then carved.
It's a learning curve.
A piece of teak, which sounds strange. You know, they say as tough as teak, but the interesting thing, teak is actually easier to carve than beech. In my opinion.
Yeah.
Because again, there are different types of beech.
Yeah. You get a more pink coloured one, a more white coloured one, don't you? And
the pink one is easier.
It's a bit more sympathetic, isn't it?
I was on a piece of white beech, and it wasn't very good. But most of the teak, the Burmese teak in particular, I found that suited me. I only had the one gouge, which I can show you.
Yeah, if you show everyone the first one you had.
It isn't really a woodcarver's gouge. It's more, there it is.
That's the first one. That's the gouge that Thomas Woodcarver started.
It's more of a joiner's gouge that was used for when you made a window.
Yeah.
We used to have to. You often saw what they call an ovalo mould, and that was used to scribe the joint, the little mould over to fit in. You had a mortise and tenon or something like that, and you had to fit. So the scribe. So that chisel I used to carve the bowl of the spoon.
Well, the interesting things, you know, for anyone sort of as a beginner, as Dan said there, when he started learning, the first attempt he had was a piece of beech.
Yeah.
And now this is interesting because when I started learning, I sort of went down the conventional route of how you should learn. The problem with me is I always have to do everything completely differently. I don't know why, that's just how my brain is wired up. And for instance then, I tried learning with teak, as Dad had taught me, and things like the lime, the basswood, and it didn't suit me. And the very wood that did suit me for learning was beech. The very wood that Dad would, you know, realise was not appropriate for learning was the one that suited me best. So I think we're a fine example of how you have to find what works for you as an individual.
That's right.
So I'm demonstrating, this is the first carving that I learned how to do. Not the best wood as well for demonstrating it, but because it's a piece of yew, which is not ideal, but it's a beautiful wood. We use it because you get that sapwood, the whites that you can see on the outside, and the orange, that beautiful orange heartwood in the middle. So this is how I learned to carve, because with this little flower, and it was Dad who taught me to do this then and showed me this is how to learn. This little flower, we always go back to it, and some of you may have seen us doing it again and again, but the reason for it, that little flower is the basis of all wood carving, because you have to do your stop cuts and then you're using those stop cuts as a barrier. So most of the fundamental skills of wood carving are encompassed in this little flower.
But then you go on to what I would call solid carving.
More sculpture.
With the hands, the head, especially birds. You know, to carve, I mean, one of the things I carved was a woodpecker. I knew how to go at a woodpecker, and that worked out all right. But to actually carve a solid carving is, you know, that's a different dimension as opposed to the relief carvings that we did. One of the things was the cathedral. I'll get it out there for you now. I'll show you the cathedral that I mean.
So you can see we've done those stop cuts, and then we're just cutting into the stop cuts using them as a barrier. So just cutting into that edge.
Blow the dust off.
We got plenty of dust around it.
Yeah.
There we go. That was our local cathedral, St David's. That was one that Dad did.
And again, I'm not very good on the technical terms. People call it low relief carving.
Yeah.
Solid carving. So I've never, although I've been in this sort of.
It's only recently we've started referring to stop cuts, isn't it?
Yeah.
We don't.
Over 40 odd years, and I've never been sort of. I'm not very good at remembering the exact term for the type of carving, which doesn't help. I know when you're advising somebody else to.
When you're sort of teaching.
Yeah, I know that's difficult, but that's why I wouldn't make a very good teacher. So it's for me. It's just.
So what are your? Give us 5 tips. 5 tips for a beginner.
5 tips. Well.
Shall I give them? I'll give you a bit of thinking time. I'll give 5 tips and see if you can come up with any to add to my list. My first tip would be secure whatever you're working on in a vise. That's my first tip. Despite when you'll see me occasionally not doing it, my second tip would be cut away from yourself. That would be my next one. My next tip would be to get some good quality gouges and a sharpening system. My next one would be to try some different woods. And try different woods, but also then be open-minded when it comes to the wood itself. And the next one then would be to try different types of carving.
Yeah. First thing.
2 seconds. We've got a couple
of in your mind. Carve. Start with what.
We've got Midnight Joker. Good afternoon. Glad you joined us.
Start with what you really want to do, what you've always wanted to do. Why are you sort of wanting to carve? What exactly do you want to do? That's the first. Once you've sort of said, okay, yeah, I've always wanted to be able to carve a head, a bust, or something like that. You always wanted to do that. So if that's what you always wanted to do, I go back to one of the most important things. If you can put that on the bench and show that one, Dave.
Yeah. There we go.
That one there, they can see that, okay? That's a complete chain. And
which we're going to, maybe not as elaborate as that, but we are planning on demonstrating a chain that's been requested by Gavin. Asked us if we could do one of those.
Well, I used to run a carving class, and when people came in, instead of starting off with lettering, numbers, and carving specific things, I used to ask them what they really wanted to, why had they come? What do they really want to carve? And this, one of the people there, Mr. Barnacle, I always remember him, he said, I know what I want to carve. I want to carve a solid chain, and I want to make it into a necklace, so that it can be sort of completely worn around the neck. And I sort of nodded, yes. And so I said, have you carved before? Never carved in my life. Oh, what trade do you do? Oh, I'm an electrician. Okay. So he seen the chain that I'd done.
I'm just sorry to interrupt, but I've just been getting a series of terrible puns about because Bright Spark and he could cling on because he's the Barnacle. Yeah. Sorry, as I'm carving, I'm thinking of loads of terrible puns.
Anyway, he'd seen the chain that I'd done, and he said, that's exactly what I do. He said, but I don't want a love spoon on the bottom. I want a pendant with a Celtic design. So I'm thinking, yeah, fine, okay. Got the timber. We had the tools from the, because we were doing this through a school at the time. And
away you went.
fair play, away he went. And weeks went by, he did a beautiful chain. The first...
Do you remember what wood you used?
Ooh, now you got me.
Yeah.
I don't remember the wood.
Knowing you, it would have probably been a piece of teak or something.
It could have been a piece of teak, it could have been a piece of oak even.
Because for jobs like that, a piece of oak. Because if you did it in a piece of oak.
What do you remember? Some of the oak you see is very nice for carving.
Yeah, but for a chain like that.
It could have been a piece of mahogany.
Right.
It could have been a piece of
mahogany.
I would have chosen something for him.
All I'm thinking with the oak, the only reason I said a piece of oak when you mentioned
what
that.
I'm making, I didn't sort of persuade him to sort of carve something simpler. I said, if that's what you're wanting to do, that's your desire, then go for it. And it turned out a beautiful chain, completely, you could wear it on your neck with a Celtic design as like a pendant at the bottom. So it just proves that it all depends on the individual.
Well, there we are. We go back to your top tip. I always remember it. Your top tip for doing it, it's the will.
Yeah.
That's what you always said, wasn't it? Is if you've got that will to do it, more so than if you've got the ability to do it, isn't it? Yeah. That's what you always. Yeah. Good example in our family is that the person then you worked with in terms of training most, and the person who had the natural flair and talent for artistic things was my sister Michaela, wasn't it?
Yeah.
As myself, I just sort of had a go on my own, made a few sort of simple things, grew up with Dad on the bench then, with him showing me different stuff. But I think I was surprised with myself when I first learned, where I made something and somebody went and bought it. And I thought, okay.
My other tip as well, if somebody sort of has the desire to carve, but they're not sure what they want to do, then I would seriously look at the lovespoon.
Yeah, because you've got flexibility to do any type of carving you want, haven't you?
You can put the shape of a spoon on the bench, as we show people, to carve a spoon. We put the spoon there. You've got something to copy. You can refer to that spoon and see.
You may have noticed as well that I've completely just cut across 2 seconds. Sorry, dude. I've completely, what it was, I was only working with 2 gouges. The last 2 spoons, as you may notice, I've been using completely different things. But it's just to demonstrate the carving whilst Dad was explaining a few pointers to everyone. Sorry, dude, you carry on.
I forgot what I was talking about, Dave.
Oh, that's good. That's typical.
Yeah, no, if you've got no idea of what you want to carve, then why not start with a lovespoon? Because the lovespoon. Oh, that was a bit of luck, David. I thought you took a big bit off there then.
Nah.
You start with a lovespoon, and you can, as you're carving there now, the daffodil. It's your impression.
And generally speaking as well, going back to, sort of elaborating on the point you're making, generally speaking, like I would not recommend, and you wouldn't recommend, starting off with a chain. You know what I mean? You wouldn't.
Oh, no.
That's an extreme case.
Yes, that's something that you
really
to do.
But generally speaking, that is one of the things in terms of learning and developing then is one thing I always sort of suggest is try to start off on an appropriate level. That's why I always demonstrate the flower, because it's a good level, it's good standards to work out to start working from.
That's another one there. Look, I'll put that one down there.
Yeah.
You see?
There we go.
The ball in the cage.
Ball in a cage. Yeah.
You see? So that's another one that people may think, how do they do that?
Yeah.
So people then would sort of...
And if you do it properly, that's all done from the one single solid block of wood, of course.
Yeah, so that might inspire somebody. I've always wanted to carve... Again, going back to the Practical Woodworking magazine, Morris Woods again. I can remember, I'm sure that's where I got the idea from. It was carving a ball in a cage. And of course you see the Chinese carving with ivory.
Yeah.
Where they carve a ball within a ball, that sort of thing. It's it's whatever you, whatever sort of takes your fancy. You can sort of you know, if you can draw, then you can do your own drawing. If not, today, of course, the internet, you can
well,
copy pictures.
I think another thing as well. I think what we're sort of saying as well is like with myself, you know, just to encourage beginners. I mean, I wouldn't have said that, you know, in terms of natural ability, being artistic, I wouldn't have said that myself that I had any of those sort of things going for me, but I couldn't think of anything else I could do.
That's right, yeah.
What else could I do? So,
Yeah.
so basically, I knew that, you know, I could develop the skills, and then just over time, through sort of, I think a lot of it comes down to attitude, doesn't it? Because through sort of stubbornness,
Yeah.
and, you know, just keep persisting, you know, you can sort of drag yourself up to a respectable level. Then I think
There's another idea there, Dave.
Yeah.
One of the first things I carved, if you can show that to the camera. Okay, it's a bit dusty.
Yeah,
it needs
got a lot of dust
you could
on
do with a
it.
bit
There
of
we
a
go.
polish, and it'll come up lovely. It will. It's interesting. Leaves, because you've got the shape of different leaves.
Yeah.
And obviously, being it's wood. Without those leaves, we wouldn't have it. So you can carve and work on different shaped leaves. That was a plaque that I did when I was learning to carve. And the interesting thing about that, we got two different timbers. We've got oak for the background, and we've got what we called American whitewood, or I think it's also called tulip wood.
tulip wood, yeah.
And that again, I started getting interested in the different types of timber. You know, being a joiner, we'd worked with softwood mainly, and we'd worked with oaks. People know about oak, yeah, mahoganies were available. But then you started, you know, tulip wood. Where the heck did that come from?
We'll have to do a poll on YouTube. I'll have to see if I can set up a poll. What's your favourite wood to carve?
Yeah,
That'd be an interesting one for us to know. What everybody likes working in.
But apparently, this tulip wood it's grown in Britain, and it gives you. Well, I showed you the cathedral. That was made out of the tulip wood. You find it on old furniture that's probably about 60 years plus old. You will find quite a lot of this tulip wood, or sometimes they call it American whitewood. It comes in different colours, like a greenish type with a yellow sapwood as well. And you know, you can then carve different shapes of leaves, because we experimented at one time. I remember we were selling key rings with different leaves and that kind of thing. So the wood, then you start to get interested then in the
Well, that's right.
timbers
I mean,
that are
this.
available.
Well, this is the second different mahogany that I've just carved.
Yeah.
And it's, you know, with that one there, it's the second different type that I've carved, and it's completely different to the first piece that we're working in. Don't worry as well. There's nothing wrong with the sound. It's the circular saw in the background. That's all. If you can hear that one. Yeah. So this is more of a, what is it? A sapele or a utile, something like that.
Oh wow.
I think I'll turn it round now so we can see it better. But it's completely different in terms of how it's carved. Not as nice a mahogany.
Looking like. Can I have a look?
Yeah, I'll hand it over to you.
Oh, it's very. When I smell it, I'd go for sapele myself.
I think this is a piece of sapele.
Yeah.
But fortunately, from the carving perspective,
Yeah.
all of the grain is running in the one direction, so it's not a difficult
That's another
piece
point
to
as well.
carve.
Anybody starting to carve, just to be careful with some of the timbers can be pretty obnoxious. Then the dust from them. So you know, I'm thinking.
Laburnum, yeah, laburnum's.
Laburnum in particular.
You've got the
dust.
Iroko. Do you want to pull that door for me there?
Yeah,
Iroko, Idigbo's, that sort of thing. There's one I know they always refer to one from South America. I don't know. It isn't the Paduke, is it? It's
I don't think so.
that they said was actually carcinogenic. I mean, when we're working with the woods and making dust, we always have the mask on. But yeah, you have got to be careful with certain woods because they can be potentially dangerous. What is that one from South America that they always?
Lomoranti.
Possibly, possibly something like that. And they say that
you have to be careful.
The dust.
Yeah, you have to be careful, no doubt about that.
Awesome.
I mean, walnut is a nice timber.
Yeah.
Different types, of course, again with the walnut.
Yeah, but we throw it open to everyone. See if we got a comment on there. See if that's.
Oh, comment.
Has Tommy shared with us his thoughts on his favourite wood?
Right, Americans call it yellow poplar or tulip poplar.
Right.
And it's not a popular, nice timber though. Well, it's interesting because I've enjoyed working with tulip wood.
I'll be honest. I find that it's interesting because I found when Dad mentioned tulip wood, I know where Tommy's coming from there, because some of the pieces, like, we get it as backing boards.
Yeah.
I was actually working last week's live stream. I was working with, I think that was a bit of tulip wood that I was working with last week, and so for instance, some of it is a bit but then we've had other pieces. There's a spoon there. Do you want to show that one? That's a piece of it.
Yeah.
And see, it just shows how you get good and bad within it, because some of it.
Well, this actually epitomises what the wood is and what it's used for, what it was used for. It was before the introduction of chipboard and plywood. This particular one.
They used
We're
it
showing
for
all the ones now that need dusting. There's even a cobweb on this one.
Well, the truth of it is, because we haven't had people in here much, everything needs dusting.
If you want to just,
there we are. That's a spoon out of tulip woods. That one there.
Yeah, but show the twists you see on the links that you can. So it just shows what you can do with that bit of, and the little disc as well that moves in the middle there.
So that's a bit of tulip wood.
So that there, but it's a tulip wood with a walnut veneer.
Yeah.
So it was used as a base, and then of course
the more expensive wood on the top,
and the veneer then was on the top.
Yeah,
so tulip wood. I understand why people would find it a little bit sort of yucky to use.
Yeah, it's it can be a bit of a.
Midnight Joker, I'm trying to get a new drive belt for my lathe, but I'm listening. So there we are.
Oh, problems with the lathe.
Yeah, a new drive belt. Oh.
That's quite substantial work, is it?
I'm not sure about that. I mean, I don't know.
We're the wrong ones when it comes to
anything mechanical. Oh.
Yeah. If it's not wooden, we're not so hot on that.
Does it mean a pulley belt or?
I don't know. No, I don't know.
Is there a difference between a drive belt and a pulley belt?
That's the difference, see, because we're wood carvers. You put us with a lathe, and we're scratching our heads, aren't we?
I can't get my head around the lathe because it's spinning around all the time.
We get a bit giddy. Fantastic work you can do on it, but after a few attempts with it, it's not my forte. What I'm going to do now, just so you can see, I'm just going to finish off this love spoon. We've got a bit of work left on those hearts. I think we've covered most things in terms of beginners.
Oh, you could spend hours, talking about how to get started, the problems that people,
One thing I was going to say as well, because I know in this current climate, and one thing I was going to say with it, anyone involved in sort of different carving clubs, different woodworking clubs, it's difficult at the moment in terms of people meeting. Drop us a line if you want any demonstrations.
It'll be the same belt.
Right.
Well, I mean, the place to go and find a belt would be the like we've got a local what do they call it?
Well, locally to us, is Timberman, is it?
No,
or
no, the one at the
what do you think? The tool hires.
What's the name place?
What up in Narberth?
In Kilgetty, man. Motor Factors.
Oh, you're thinking bumper to bumper, are you?
Bumper to bumper, wait. People go for different parts for cars.
Right.
And there are all sorts of different pulleys that they sell, you see.
You reckon you get it in there?
Well, you take the size of the pulley. That's the first place I would look. But we bought a second-hand coronet, and on that, the belt that drives that.
It's like a chain almost, isn't it?
It's almost like a chain, yeah, but a leather chain, and then you can take a link out. You can buy one that slightly too big, and then you take a link out to fit the right size. So that's another way sort of around it. But I would look in like a Motor Factors, because they sell all sorts of different pulleys for repairing cars and that. So I don't know whether that helps. Yeah, man.
Yeah, going back to saying, yeah, if anybody's in different clubs and things like that, if we're doing all sorts of live streaming and things like that, and if you ever want to do like a almost like a sort of Q&A, isn't it?
Yeah.
If people wanna get involved and ask different questions, it's always good to sort of share ideas, and it's always nice to be able to share different methods, different techniques, and different thoughts with everyone.
I know I'm obviously biased about the Love Spoon, but it's a super product to make, and the pleasure you get making it, number one, but the pleasure you get, hopefully, at giving it to the person. I mean, in our case, we're selling them, we're making a living from them. But it is.
But it's more special, isn't it? If you can make it for someone special, and present it to them, it really is a nice thing to be able to do.
Yeah.
Now this one here again, we'd have some more finishing work. We got different sanding work to do on it, that sort of thing as well. But there we are. That's just a demonstration.
Yeah, and I know we've covered the other part before. I think you did it before about the finishing, what types of finish you use, like, Yeah,
we mainly use shellac sanding sealer.
That's always a nice thing, though, when you're starting to carve. you put that first coat of shellac, whatever you use, whether it's oil, whether it's.
Do you know? I saw a video. I forgot this now. I watched a video. And somebody was putting water on it to raise the grain. You come across that?
Never come across that.
No, I thought it was a really odd idea to do. Sorry, it was basically I did see it on YouTube, and I saw what they were doing.
I mean, the
and I thought,
the shellac will raise the grain.
When I saw it, I thought, what are you doing? I don't know if anybody else has come across that at all.
Being it was quite technical years ago about people would use what they call a grain filler. And I know there's another one, there's a church in Tenby where all the work inside, the pews, are made from oak, but they're what they call lined oak.
Lime washed, yeah.
Yeah, what you lost, Dave?
No, well, all I was going to do, just to finish off, I was going to show everyone, I was just going to show you all, there we are. That's what we've been working on there. So that's our live stream, that's our sort of beginner's guide. For making love spoons. Hopefully it's interesting. Remember, put those comments in the comment section if you need any help. If you've got any thoughts, got any different stuff to share with us, let us know. We'd be delighted to hear from you. Thank you all for joining us. I hope that live stream, I think that live stream went a little bit better, to say the least, than yesterday's. As always, we'll be back again soon with more videos. Be normal. It'll be Wednesday as normal for this next one. Tried a car shop, he said, but no joy. There's a place that sells.
Oh, right.
There we are. So he had the same exact thought. There you go. They say great minds, don't they?
Yeah.
There we go. But yeah, Wednesday we'll have our upload of a video as normal and all going well. We're going to keep doing live streams. And we're going to be doing more live streams, I hope. We'll be doing regular live streams, just sharing whatever we're sort of doing on a daily basis. It's basically we've got a camera, better setup and things like that. So perfect for doing live streams. But as I said, thank you all again. And we'll be back again soon with more videos.